Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering macros and their usefulness in the game. So let's start out by talking about what a macro even is. A macro is basically a line command that you can type in the game right here that allows you to use one or more abilities. That would be the really simple basic definition of what a macro is. We'll go over more how they're written and things like that, but just try and keep in your mind that a macro is just a line command that you type out that tells the game to do a very specific thing on a very specific target at a very specific time, like when you push the button, or it's something that lets you use many different abilities all with one button press. It's basically what macros are. And we use them in World of Warcraft because they're very efficient. Instead of having to click from this enemy over to this enemy, and then back over to this enemy, and then back over to this enemy, we can avoid all of that with the use of macros. So we'll start today. Well, the macros we're going to cover, first of all, are the three most commonly used. It's all I'm going to cover for today. That's going to be the focus macro, the Mouseover macro, and the one-shot style macro. So we're going to start with focus macros, since I already have everything kind of set up. And so this is how focus macros work. This big boss right here is my main target, right? I've marked him with a skull for you guys, so it's all really obvious. And then this sneaky little booger over here around the corner, I have set as my focus down here. This is how you know it's a focus. Ordinarily, focus frames are, I think in Blizzard's base UI, focus frames are like right here, but you can always move frames, just like you saw me do. You can right click on the frame and unlock it and just move it wherever you want. I always put my focus frames right under my target frames, and I always move my target frames and my character frames right here in the middle of my screen so I can see. So this is where your focus frame would be, if you're doing it the way I'm doing it anyways. And so I've marked this guy with a blue square so you can see just an easier, clearer demonstration. So a focus macro would allow me to have the boss targeted. And let's say that we're in a raid right now, and this is the raid boss. We're not actually, this is just a world boss out in the world. But let's say we're in a raid and I'm in a big group of people, and this is the raid boss, and this is an ad that just spawned. And the raid leader is like, we're not ready to deal with this guy yet. Someone go run over and CC him real quick. So he just stays where he's at and doesn't come do whatever crappy mechanic he's going to do. So since I have a focus macro set up and prepared for you guys, I can just come over here and CC him without ever having to target him. You'll notice that my main target is still the boss. I didn't have to click off of him and then click this guy and then click my CC ability. I was able to just set him as a macro when he first came out. So we're doing our raid and this guy comes out and I'm like, oh snap, I set him as my focus, and the raid leader's like, hey, someone go over and CC him, and then I was able to CC him with my focus macro without having to lose target of the boss. In a raid setting, by the way, you wouldn't be like clicking on him. You would have keybinds for setting things as focuses, but we'll go over keybinds in another video. So that's the basic idea of the focus macro, and that's how it works. You can use this for interrupting an enemy. Let's say you're doing 3v3 arenas and you want to be able to interrupt the enemy team's healer without having to lose, you know, the enemy mage that you have focused, let's say. So you can, right at the start of the arena, set the enemy healer as your focus, just like I did, and then write a macro for your interrupt to be cast on your focus target. And that way you can interrupt the enemy healer without having to ever lose the main target that is the enemy mage player. So those are some examples of how we use focus macros, and this is how we write them. We're going to hit escape in-game to go to the game menu, and we're going to go to macros, and then you're going to click new, and you're going to find the icon for the ability that you're wanting to make a macro for. So in this example, I was using paralysis, which is a monk CC ability, and this is the icon for it right here. So I would click that, and I'm going to type in the name of the ability. You can choose to call this whatever you want, whatever makes it easier for you to know what it is. So if it would be easier for you to call this ability like focus or focus CC or focus interrupt or whatever, you can call it whatever you want. It doesn't change anything. It's just for you, like to help you so that you know what it is. So we're going to go ahead and give it a name, and then we're going to click OK, and now we're in the main macro command box. So once you're here, for almost every macro in the game, the first command line is going to be the exact same almost always. And we're going to start off with the hashtag symbol or the pound sign, whatever you want to call it, shift 3. So we're going to do hashtag, I call it hashtag. So we're going to do hashtag, and then we're going to type the words show tool tip, all one word with no spaces. So hashtag show tooltip, and then we're going to hit space. And then we're going to type in the name of the ability that we want to use. So if it's an interrupt or a stun or a heal or whatever, you're going to type in the name of that ability. So again, for me, in this example, the name of the ability is paralysis. So that's what I'm going to type in right here. And then once you've got that first line of command done, we're going to hit enter. We're going to go to the next line of command. So the show tooltip command literally just allows you, once you've made the macro and put it on your action bar, it allows you to just mouse over it and see the abilities tooltip. That's all the show tooltip is. It's very self-explanatory. You just see the tooltip. So on to the next line of command. We're going to type /cast. Let me move my mouse. We're going to type /cast, and we're going to type space, and then we're going to do left bracket, and we're going to do the @ sign. So shift 2. The @ sign, and then the word focus, and then we're going to close the bracket, so right bracket, and this is all you'll see. I put no spaces in here. It's all one word. It's left bracket, @ sign, the word focus, and then close bracket with no spaces. After you've closed the bracket, now we hit space, and again you're going to type in the name of the ability that you're wanting to use. So if it's an interrupt, you're going to type in the name of your interrupt ability. If it's a CC, you're going to type in the name of your CC ability, etc., etc. So again, for me, it's paralysis. We're going to type that again. We're going to hit save, and we're going to drag this now to our action bar. You can put it wherever you want to put it on your action bar. And now you have your first focus macro set up. If you're planning on making more than one focus macro, you can put your mouse in the box and highlight all of the text and hit Control-C to copy all of the text. And hit new, and now you're all set to make a whole nother focus macro. I'll just do another one as an example, and I can hit Control-V now to paste all of that text back in, and I would call this macro whatever the name of the ability is. So let's say I'm wanting to make a different focus macro now. So the first one that I made, remember paralysis, that was for CC. Let's say that the second focus macro that I want to use is for a defensive cooldown for monks called Karma. I don't actually have this as a healer, but I'm just going to type it in so you guys get an idea. You would erase the first name and type in the second name, and that's all you have to do. You can just keep copy and pasting, and just changing the actual name of the ability. Save it, drag it to your bar, and you've got a whole set of focus macros all done just from typing this stuff in once. Okay, so we've got our focus macro typed out and set up on our bar. And actually, while I'm here, let me just show you guys how to set a target as your focus through keybinds instead of having to right click them. So you're going to hit escape, and you're going to go to the games menu, and you're going to go to key bindings, and then you're going to go to targeting right here. And we're going to scroll down until we see the option to set our target as our focus. Right here, focus target. So we're going to set a keybind for this. We'll just do number 2 right here because why not? It's just a random arbitrary thing. So if I select this guy as my target and then I hit number 2, I've now set him as my focus instead. So now I can make this guy my target, my main target, and still have this boss guy over here set as my focus. And so that's how you use key bindings to set focus targets instead of right clicking them like you saw me do earlier, but just so you guys know, that's how you do it. You can just click on an enemy or a player, a friendly player in the world, it doesn't matter, and right click on their character frame and just hit set focus, and that will set it as your focus also if you don't want to do keybinds. So that's how you do it. And then when you're done with the focus, you can hit clear focus right here. So that's focus macros. Feel free to pause or rewind, whatever you need to do if you need to go over the command line again. It's always just going to be show tooltip or hashtag show tooltip space, whatever the name of the ability is, so that you can see the tooltip on your action bar. And then it will be enter the next line of command, /cast space bracket at focus close bracket space name of the ability. And that's focus macros. So now let's move on to Mouseover Macros. Mouseover Macros are kind of similar in that they have the same overarching benefit, which is that I can cast a spell on an enemy or a friendly character without having to actually click on them to cast the spell. So I'm in my healing spec of Monk right now. So here's a friendly player right here. I'm not targeting him. I still have my target set to this main boss right here. Oh, he just disappeared. I guess he joined a group. That's okay. I can join a group also. So I'm just going to show you guys, I'm going to join this little raid group right here just so you guys get an idea of how the focus macros work. I'm sorry, not focus macros, Mouseover Macros. So for Mouseover Macros, of course, they're all leaving. That's okay, I can just heal this kid right here. So for focus macros, see this short little nerd running towards me right here? I can just mouse over him and start healing him. Without having to target him, I'm just healing him, just because I'm mousing over his character icon. And it's the same thing if you're in a party or a raid and you have your party or raid frames out. I can heal this rogue right here just by mousing over his character frame. I don't need to actually be targeting him to heal him. I can just mouse over. You'll see that I'm not targeting anybody right now, but I'm still healing this mage right here. And that's the beauty of the Mouseover Macros. These are most commonly used by healers. As you can see, it's very nice. It's very helpful. I can have the boss targeted. I could be doing damage to the boss in a raid or a Mythic Plus environment, and have like good damage uptime and still be able to just quickly mouse over a friendly player in my raid frames and throw them some heals without having to ever lose my main target, which is the boss here. So that's the beauty of the Mouseover macro, and now let's go over how it's written. Let me leave this group real quick so I don't die. Okay, so again, we're going to hit escape to get to the main menu. We're going to click on macros. We're going to click on new. You're going to find the icon of the healing spell or other ability. This doesn't have to be just a healing spell. It can be a damage ability, it can be a stun, it can be anything you want. We're just, like I said, it's most common for healers. So you're going to find the icon for the healing spell that you want to do a Mouseover macro for. So for this example, the icon that I just hovered over right here is for a monk spell called Vivify, which is one of our heals. So we're going to type in that name right here, hit OK, and in our main command box, again, we're going to type hashtag show tool tip, all one word, and then we're going to go space, type in the name of your spell or ability. For me, again, it's Vivify. Then you're going to hit enter to go to the next line of command, and we're going to type /cast space left bracket the @ and then type the word Mouseover, all one word with no spaces, and now close the bracket, hit space, and type the name of your spell or ability again. Again, for me, it's Vivify. So we're going to save, and we're going to drag this ability over to our action bar, wherever we want it to be. So I already have Mouseover macros for all of my healing spells. I'm just going to put this right here, just so you guys can see. So I can be targeting the boss, and I can mouse over this guy who is a hunter. I can mouse over this hunter and cast the Vivify macro that I just made, and it will heal him with my Vivify spell without me actually having to target him. So let's try that again. I'm targeting the boss, and I'm going to heal this guy just by mousing over him without having to actually click on him. It's so useful, especially as a healer. Like I said, for damage uptime, for priority healing targets, to just have your main target right here always selected. You don't have to click on 50 million different people in order to heal them. You can just mouse over their character and heal them. When you're in a party or a raid, it's even simpler because all of their little boxes, like you saw earlier, are all lined up, and you can just mouse over the unit frame box for the character you need to heal without actually clicking on them and selecting them. You can still just always have the boss targeted or whoever you have targeted. So that's the Mouseover macro. Here's the great thing about Mouseover Macros for healers. Number one, most of the healing add-ons like Voodoo and stuff like that do essentially the exact same thing as this without you having to have an add-on installed and all of the memory usage and stuff. You can just write a simple macro. So here's the thing that's so nice about it that I like so much, especially, like I said, for healers, or anybody if you're going to be using a ton of Mouseover macros like this, is once you have this first Mouseover macro written, right, so you've got your show tooltip space spell name, and then your next line of command /cast at Mouseover spell name, and you've saved it and you've got that ability on your action bar, then the next thing that you can do is put your mouse in the command box and just highlight the text and Control-C to copy it, and you can hit new and you can move right along to your next healing spell and make a whole nother Mouseover macro for your next healing spell and just type Control-V so that you paste all of the text in the box. And now all you have to do over and over and over again for every new Mouseover macro is just type in the name of the new healing spell that you're making a macro for. So it's just, I'm going to erase the name Vivify, and I'm instead going to type in my next healing spell, which for me is Renewing Mist, and I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to put this where the heck ever, it doesn't really matter. And again, I can just mouse over this character and heal them with my new macro without having to actually target them, and you can do this over and over, just copy and paste into new macros for every single healing spell you have without having to retype all this stuff out over and over and over again. For me, I use a 12-button gaming mouse, so it's super convenient because I can just stack all of my healing spells off to the side over here where they're out of the way, and I can use the mouse buttons on the side of my mouse to heal people while I have bosses targeted and things like that without having to ever lose target of my boss, and I can have all of my main damage spells still on like my main kind of hotkeys without, again, having to, you know, make a million different keybinds and things like that. That's what I find most convenient, and like I said, the most popular add-on for healers to use right now is an add-on called Voodoo, and it's an add-on that basically does functionally this exact same thing, but with an add-on, of course, it's something that's always running in the background. You can see in the bottom corner right here where I'm mousing over, if you look at the very bottom of this box that just popped up, the add-on memory that's currently running in the background of my computer right now is 5.5 megabytes, and that's something that's just constantly hogging memory all the time, and the more add-ons you have, the more that number grows. It can start to slow your game down, and in general, I just feel like, why have a million add-ons running if you don't need them, especially when you have something as simple as Mouseover macros that you can make that do exactly the same thing that a healing add-on would have done. Let's heal this tank right here. And I'm not having to focus him. You'll see I'm still focusing this main guy right here. But I can heal the crap out of this guy this whole time that he's fighting. I just think Mouseover macros are a godsend for healers, and I highly recommend them for anybody, even if you're not a healer, even if you're a DPS spec that just has healing spells available to you. So if you want to play a Windwalker Monk or a Retribution Paladin, or if you're playing a tank, something like a Brewmaster Monk or a Protection Paladin, somebody that has off heals available to the spec, you can still just make a Mouseover macro for whatever heal your spec happens to have and just put it off to the side somewhere. And if someone in your group or someone you're questing with starts getting like really low health, you can just mouse over them real quick without having, again, to drop your main target. You can just mouse over them and heal them real quick with your damage classes off heal ability. It's just so helpful. You can use it with so many different things. So that's macros in general. Like I said, I'm not going to go like super in depth with them, as you guys can tell, obviously. I just wanted to give a very brief overview of what the most 3 commonly used macros are and how we use them. Oh, I didn't even show you guys the one shot. Okay, so let me go over the one shot real quick. The one shot, like I said, is a macro that allows you to use many abilities all at once, basically. So I have to warn you guys that the functionality of this kind of macro has changed a lot over the years as Blizzard has added more and more of our abilities to the global cooldown, and one-shot macros basically what you're doing is you're trying to take as many abilities as you can that are not on the global cooldown and combining them all into one button so that you're not having to press every individual thing. You can just press one button and get all of them all together. So it's a little more difficult now since so many abilities are on the global cooldown, but I'll still just show you how it works. Again, I'm on my healing spec here, so one-shot macros are normally, as you can imagine, used for DPS specs, so this is going to look a little funky on a healing class, but just so I have something to show you guys, this is how a macro, like a one-shot macro, would look. So you would have many different abilities all listed down this row right here, to just use a bunch of different things all at once, so that you only have to push one button instead of many buttons. So for the healer, for this particular example that I made earlier, I'm just going to use this. I'm going to use one ability that's on the global cooldown, and then two abilities that are off the global cooldown. And that would be the best way to use a one-shot macro, is one ability that's on the global cooldown, and then as many abilities as you can that make sense anyways that are off the global cooldown. So for this example, I'm going to be using a monk healing spell called Essence Font, which is just an AoE heal that has the 12-second cooldown, and it's on the global cooldown. So this is what the spell. Oops, I'm typing in my thing and I didn't mean to. Let me just show you guys real quick. This is what Essence Font looks like. Okay, it's just whatever. It's a healing spell. So for this example, again, I'm going to do my show tooltip thing like always. So hashtag show tooltip, and then space, and then whatever the name of your main on global cooldown ability is. You probably always want to make this show tooltip name the name of the spell that's on the global cooldown. You don't always have to. Sometimes people prefer to have the tooltip showing whichever spell has the longest cooldown. It doesn't really matter, whatever you prefer. You don't really even have to include the show tooltip line at all if you don't want to. I always prefer it. So we're going to do show tooltip, hashtag show tooltip, space, whatever the name of your longest cooldown ability is, or the name of your on global cooldown ability, and then you're going to hit enter. And then now we're going to have however many lines for however many abilities you want to use that are off the global cooldown. So for example, I'm going to type /cast space the name of an off global cooldown ability. For Mouseover Monk, we don't really have very many off global cooldown abilities. The only one that I could find was Thunder Focus Tea, which just empowers our next heals. So that's fine for this one-shot macro, just so you guys can see. So I'll have /cast space Thunder Focus Tea, because that's the name of the ability. And then the next line of command, I'll do /use trinket. So that's a cool thing to know about these one-shot macros, is you can use trinkets or items, basically any item that has an on-use effect, like damage potions, trinkets, legendary equipment or gear that has an on-use effect, anything that says use on it, as opposed to just equip, like a random passive sort of bonus. If it has an on-use effect like this, you can always bake it into a macro like this. So if you want to bake in a trinket or an item, like this cloak right here, you'll see the bottom half of it has a use effect. If you want to bake in an item or a trinket like that, you need to type /use instead of /cast, because it's not a spell that you're casting, it's an item that you're using. And then you have to type the item's actual full name. So for my trinket, it's called Plunderbeard's Flask. It doesn't matter, it's just some garbage thing. But for the purpose of this macro, you're just typing in /use and then the name of your trinket, or the name of your on-use item, the name of your damage potion. If you want to use a potion, you have to type in the actual name of the potion. So again, /use space name of the item, and then the next line of command is going to be the next ability that you want to use. For this example that I put together here, I'm only using 3 abilities total. My Thunder Focus Tea, which is off the global cooldown and empowers my next heal. I'm going to be using my Plunderbeard's Flask trinket, which just on use gives me a whole crap ton of my primary stat. And then I'm going to be actually casting that main healing spell, Essence Font, that is a big AoE heal. So this might be a macro that I might make for like running Mythic plus Dungeons or something, is kind of like a panic, oh crap, we're taking a lot of damage button. so that I'm not having to hit all of these things individually while the group is taking a metric crap ton of damage. So instead of having to spend 3 global cooldowns effectively to cast each of these 3 abilities, I can bake them all into this one macro and only have to hit this one button. So that's how it would work. I hope this makes sense. Again, you can pause it if you need to, but it's fairly simple. It's just one on global cooldown high damage ability or damage cooldown, kind of offensive cooldown ability like that, and then a bunch of off cooldown abilities. So here's a really quick way, real quick, to know if an ability that you have is off the global cooldown. You just cast a spell or use an ability that you know is on the global cooldown. So for example, I'll just use Renewing Mist real quick so you guys can see. I'll use Renewing Mist on myself, and then you'll see when I use it, since it's on the global cooldown, it will also trigger the global cooldown timer of all other abilities I have that are on the global cooldown. So you'll see a sort of circle, like a countdown timeline going through all of my abilities like this. See how that line went across all of my abilities? And this one did not have a line go through it because it's not on the global cooldown. And that's just a really quick way to see what abilities of yours are on the global cooldown and which ones are not. Anyways, back to the macro real quick. So this is the formula that you're always going to use for every sort of one-shot macro like this, where you're trying to combine many things all at once. If you're a damage dealing class, like, you know, a warrior, let's say, you want to combine avatar and recklessness and whatever. First of all, both of those are on the global cooldown, so sucks to be you. But the idea is the same. Also for trinkets, using one trinket will automatically trigger a cooldown for all of your trinkets, just so you know. So you cannot have 2 on-use trinkets and use both of them at the same time in a macro like this. You can only have one on-use trinket baked into a macro. Yeah, trying to do both of them, like 2 on-use trinkets, as soon as you use one, it would trigger an internal cooldown of the other one. So it's a thing that Blizzard did again to try to stop us using stuff like this. But this is what the macro looks like. You have one ability that's on the global cooldown, and then a bunch of abilities, or, you know, your on-use trinket, your damage potion, something else that's off the global cooldown, and you just write it out just like this. If it's an actual spell or ability from your spell book, you type /cast space the name of the spell or ability. And if it's an item like a trinket or a damage potion, you're going to type /use space and then the name of the item, just like this. And you would hit save, and you would put it on your action bar. And now this is on a 20-second cooldown, but you'll see in 18 seconds when I push this button that I will cast my essence font, and I will cast my Thunder Focus Tea, and I will use my trinket. So 9 seconds left. Let's see if we can find some players to get in range of, so our essence font actually heals some people. That would be nice. It's not a big deal if it doesn't happen. Anyways, doesn't really matter. This is what the macro looks like when you've done it properly. So you'll see, again, you'll be able to see at the top of my bar where all of my buffs are, but you can also just watch the essence font right here, and the trinket right here, and the Thunder Focus Tea right here will all go on cooldown. There we go. So my trinket went off, my Thunder Focus Tea went off, and my heal went off. So you can see my Thunder Focus Tea buff right up here. Oh my gosh, right there. And my trinket that's just now wrapping up. So that's the basics of a one-shot macro. Again, feel free to pause the video if you need to for more instructions on the line command. I will probably go ahead and just include the line commands in the description box below, so make sure to check that if you need to. And if you guys have any questions or requests for different videos, anything like that, let me know in the comments again. And